Mina-san, welcome back to Our Life Beginning and Always. We're continuing where we left off last time. We are going to do Drive. Charity will be the last one, as I know will be the last one that we do, but we are going to do Drive, and we're going to have some fun with this. So sit back, enjoy, as we continue our life and getting to know how amazing of a guy our Cove is. Like a lazy cat, you stretched your arms above your head and yawned, blinking your eyes sleepily. The day was warm and pleasant, and you were lounging on the couch in the living room, finding it difficult to do much in that moment. Your moms and Liz had gone out shopping, looking for some new items for your sister to take back and decorate her college dorm with. They had asked if you wanted to go with them, but you declined. For you, today was all about relaxation. Cove had dropped by to spend some time with you, content to join in doing nothing. The two of you had been chatting idly as you lazed around, talking about the other things you two had planned for the summer. We're gonna be stretched out across him, because that sounds the most adorable. You had your feet propped up on one of the armrests and used Cove as a comfy cushion beneath your head, totally settled in. Cove gently wound his fingers through your hair as you rested on his legs, equally at ease. The day dragged on and you found yourself yawning more and more often between conversations. You had almost dozed off completely when suddenly a buzz rang out, disturbing the silence. Your phone was on its charger in the kitchen, so it couldn't have been that. Cove pulled out his own phone from his back pocket and checked the screen. His movement had jolted you, so you tried to readjust your position to get it right again.
Oh.
It's my mom. After leaning forward and setting the phone on the coffee table in front of him, Cove hit the speaker button. Hey, what's up? Blue is here too.
Hi.
Hi, Cove. Hello, Blue. Hey, Can you actually say that? Oh, God. I hope you know you're interrupting cuddle time. I want to go with that answer. Mom 3 sounds a little awkward. Her light tinkling laughter could be heard easily through the phone. Very sorry. This won't take long. Cove, baby, I wanted to ask if you have a plan for all your junk. Cove made a small, outraged grumble, giving you a sidelong glance. That's not junk. It's important. Mm-hmm. Though you couldn't see it, you could tell by the sound of her voice that Cairo was smiling.
Aha.
But is that a yes or no about the plan? He looked over at you, his mouth pulled into a tight smile. I'm still thinking about it. Blue? I'm gonna take the phone off speaker so me and Mom can go over this. It'll be quick. Cove carefully moved you off him and took the phone from the table before pushing himself to his feet. He hit the speaker button again to turn it off and continued the conversation with his mom as he headed towards the door. The lock clicked behind him as he exited the house, and you sank back into the cushions, idly trying to decide what to do next. After electing to grab your own phone from its charger, you resumed your position on the couch, tapping away at the screen. Your mind drifted away from thoughts of Cove and his phone call, with all the many ways your device could distract you. It was an effective enough way to kill time, and you had managed to do very little things when the door opened again and Cove returned. He gave you a smile as he approached, so you figured the conversation couldn't have gone too bad. Hopefully. Please don't say that it's a bad conversation. You watched as Cove strolled over to where you were still sitting. He crossed his arms against the top corner of the couch and rested it on them while bending forward to lightly kiss the top of your head.
Hey.
I'm back. I'm gonna hold your face. With a sigh, he leaned into your touch and let out a long breath. You ran your fingers through the hair at the sides of his head, coming back to give his chin a small affectionate squeeze as you crinkled your nose at him. So, good news or bad news? He turned his head suddenly, running a hand through his hair and letting out an exasperated breath. He seemed nervous, but you couldn't imagine why.
Fine.
It's fine. Nothing to worry about. You raised an eyebrow at his tone, moving your head to the side to try and meet his eye. That doesn't explain what's going on. He shrugged and gave you a tight smile, trying to play whatever it actually was off as unimportant. There's nothing going on, just stuff I can deal with later, some other time. He was transparently avoiding the truth, and you stared back at him seriously, an indication that you weren't going to ignore what he was doing. Eventually, he broke beneath your stare, hanging his head on his hands and groaning. I need to make another trip to my mom's place. There's some stuff there that I'm gonna use, so I'll have to pick it up. It wouldn't make sense to ship it, and I couldn't bring the stuff back with me last time since I flew. Oh. Suddenly you understood what the phone conversation had been about. Cove was gonna drive to his mom's house in Nevada. When will you go? Mom thinks it would be best to do it now, while I'm still kind of free, but... Cove pouted, giving you an unhappy look, and you could see the prospect was already taking a toll on him. I don't want to. I was just there, and for even longer than usual. Why do I have to leave right now, when it's our last summer like this? Aww. You thought it was cute, he wanted to say. It showed how much he appreciated being there and spending time with you. Looking up again, you met his bright aquamarine eyes, finding a sad smile tugging on his lips. Aw, Cove. Oh. Suddenly his eyebrows jumped and his eyes lit up like a lamp. You could come with me. What? You should come with me. I mean, I get that there are two of us live next door to each other and my mom lives in another state. My trips there are usually to spend time with her, just the two of us. But this time won't be like that. All I'm gonna do is drive over, stay for the night, and then pack up the car in the morning, and turn around again. I feel like I changed Cove's voice, and I'm so sorry if I did. I feel like I got Kyra there right now. All the male voices are the kind of voices that I could always screw up because I'll never remember what I did recording to recording. Most of the time will be spent in the car, so it's good to have another person there. Plus, you'd have a chance to see my mom again, in her place. Maybe we could even find something cool to break at on the way. You couldn't stop yourself from laughing at his enthusiasm. He blushed a little, reining himself in.
Please?
I just feel like it could be fun. Please, could you think about it? I don't think I need to think, Cove. I think this is gonna happen, buddy. I'd love to. When do we leave? I'll have to let my moms know, but as long as we've got nothing else important on the days we pick, there's no reason I wouldn't be able to go. Which we shouldn't have anything important because guess what? I chose not to have a job in this thing. Like the real me who didn't have a job. He grinned from ear to ear, thrilled by the news. He put both his hands on your cheeks, kissing your face all over, having to bend down far to do so, but he didn't mind it a bit. Then he wrapped his arms around your neck, letting out a happy sigh.
I'm so glad.
I'm so glad. This is so great. I'll call my mom back and let her know right now. You spent some time together going over your schedules, making plans for when you could take the trip. You needed it to fit in around Cove's work schedule, which he brought up on his phone to double check. Luckily, it was only a 2-day trip, so finding a couple free days in a row wasn't impossible. It wasn't long before the dates were finally set and all the plans were made. I'm excited for the trip. A short trip sounded like the perfect way to spend some time. You could listen to music, eat snacks, enjoy the open road. No matter what you thought about things, the morning when you were due to leave arrived. It was cooler than usual, the sun barely peeking over the tops of the houses. You stood outside your house on the footpath near the road, waiting for Cove. You yawned loudly, covering your mouth with the back of your hand. Mornings were always a struggle. With your travel bag clutched in one hand, you watched as Cove finished packing up his car. He had organized all sorts of things, water bottles, snacks, and who knows what else. Cove insisted that he had everything under control and didn't need help. At least you could rest easy, knowing it was all taken care of. As you waited, you glanced over Cove's car. You knew it well. It used to belong to Mr. Holden, and when Cove had learned to drive, it passed to him. His dad had taken the opportunity to get a newer one. It was pretty old at this point, but it had served both of them well so far. You just hoped it had enough life left in it to survive a trip as long as the one you were embarking on. The slam of a door closing made you jump. You snapped back to focus and saw Cove was walking towards you. He dusted his hands off on his pants and tilted his head towards the car. That's it. Ready to go? Yeah, I'm ready. He smiled and stepped aside, giving you space to situate your own bag where you wanted it. Once everything was safely inside, he glanced back at you.
All right.
We should get started. It's gonna be a ways to go. I'm gonna hug you. Look at I caught him off guard. He seemed surprised, but he chuckled and returned the gesture. It couldn't last for long, though. Time was of the essence. We gotta start chugging, Cove! The two of you climbed into the car and buckled up. Cove in the driver's seat and you sitting shotgun. His eyes moved to you.
Thank you.
Thanks again for coming on this trip with me. Hey, I'm doing this for me too. It'll be fun. After checking the mirrors and starting the engine, you pulled out of the driveway and the trip began. With a small sigh, you got cozy in your seat and watched the familiar houses in your neighborhood pass by. Cove reached over to turn on the radio. A crackle of static mixed with odd snippets of songs filled the car as he flipped through the stations. Mr. Holden's car was in good condition, but it was, well, older. There was no way to plug in a phone to play music, so the radio had to do. Eventually, he settled on the top 40 station before sitting back and resting both hands on the wheel. Is this okay? I mean, I'm not gonna argue. Yeah, you know what I like. How could I forget? He smiled, happy with the answer. Time flew by, and with the scenery outside, your window became more and more unfamiliar. Neither of you spoke for a good long while, but the quiet was comfortable. You had become all too used to each other's company over the years. Eventually, Cove broke the silence, clearing his throat softly before he spoke. It's been too long since you and I have spent any time with my mom. I know she still comes to the neighborhood sometimes, but it's not even once a year. I'm always going to hers. I'm happy the two of us are doing this. Yeah, me too. But speaking of your mom and trips, remember the time she took us on that crazy drive across town? He shook his head at the memory, his laughter clear and bright. Oh, I remember. I kept worrying about papers and shoes while you were having a blast. It was an amazing night. He smiled quietly to himself, clutching the wheel a little more confidently. With the crinkling of his eyebrows, a look of nostalgia crossed over Cove's features. Mom always knew how to make things memorable. Aw, Cove. We love your mom so much. I can't deny that. Silence slowly crept back into the space. Both of you were thinking back on that night and all the memories you had of it. Your elbow resting against the windowsill, you gazed out at the world that was slowly coming to life as the morning rolled on by. The sun climbed higher in the sky, forcing you to adjust the visor overhead to keep it out of your eyes. Hey, reaching back for me? Cove gave you a sidelong glance as he drove, indicating with a nod of his head and a tiny smile. I want some chips, the salt and vinegar ones. I don't know how you can eat that. He huffed impatiently, keeping his eyes on the road. I like them and want to eat them. You shouldn't have a problem with letting me since you don't even like it. That is not what I'm making the point of. Stretching out the seatbelt to give yourself space, you twisted your spot and reached into the bag holding the snacks. It took a bit of effort to sort through the collection of goodies stuffed inside, but eventually the bag of chips crinkled beneath your fingers and you pulled them out and sat back in your seat. Here. Thanks. Do you mind opening it? His eyes lit up at the prospect of snacks and you shook your head in amusement, popping the top of the bag. Want me to feed them to you? Oh, let's do it! His eyes widened, the hint of a blush creeping over his cheeks, but he steadfast continued to face the road.
No,
that's okay. Oh, Covey boy, you gotta let me do some things to make you blush. Can you just pour a few into my hand? Yeah, sure. Thanks. Cove held out one outstretched hand. You did your best to have the chips fall into his palm, but some did end up on the floor. After that, you rolled up the top of the bag and stowed the chips safely in the back again. When you turned to the front, it was to find Cove crunching a fistful of chips into his mouth, crunching loudly. He swiped his hand on his pants absentmindedly before gripping the wheel and spilling crumbs all over the place. What the hell, Cove? Oh, you're like a little kid. He snorted and pulled a hand from the wheel once more to flick the salty residue from his fingers at you. With a gasp, you raised an arm to defend yourself. You shook your head at the mess of crumbs that fell from his mouth as he chuckled. See what I mean? The hours drifted by much the same way as that, with the two of you snacking and chatting as the day stretched on. It was fairly calm and quiet. traveling along the open road, and you found little in the way of interruptions. At one point, you passed a Welcome to Nevada sign, and Cove gave a tiny cheer. He was in disbelief that the two of you were seriously all the way in another state like this. Eventually, you had to stop for gas and make a detour at a small diner to grab a proper meal that didn't consist of chips and candy. After the refueling both the car and your stomachs, the drive was back on, just as the sun began to drop beneath the horizon, bathing the sky in a wash of orange light. Cove informed you that there wasn't much longer left to go. You were almost there. I think we would have taken shifts. That's how I always drive when I go someplace. Like when I go to Texas, we take shifts. The route was fairly straightforward, and you had enough practice with driving to feel comfortable doing so. When night eventually fell into the blanket of darkness, the drive finally came to an end. Cove pulled into the parking lot of Kyra's apartment building, and the glow of the car lights disappearing as he turned off the engine and let out a heavy sigh. We made it! We're here! The two of you exchanged tired smiles, having successfully and safely completed one half of the trip. You were relieved to have actually arrived, and eager to get out of the car and stretch your legs. You took the stairs up to the building together. After a knock, you were abruptly met with a flash of green hair as Kyra opened the door and immediately took her son in her arms.
Cove.
There he is, my gigantic baby boy! She squeezed him for a moment, then pulled back so she could examine his face. Are you even taller than the last time I saw you? Cove gave her a fond look as she patted the tops of his shoulders proudly. You say that every time I'm here. It doesn't even make sense right now. My last visit wasn't that long ago. Oh, Cove. It will always make sense. Mothers always correct. Sorry if I sounded a little weird right then. Someone is investigating and she's not supposed to investigate. She's in the recording room because she's not trustworthy on her own. Unlike the other one. Service dog is completely trustworthy on her own. Kyra simply laughed before letting him go fully and ushering the two of you into her apartment. Then she turned to you, a wide grin pulling at her lips. Blue, it's so nice you came along with! And as a bonus, you both arrived in one piece. It's good to see you too. See you, Kyra. It's been too long. Aw, yes it has. Kyra beamed at you both. While you would have loved nothing more than to settle down and rest after the drive, you could see she wasn't gonna let you go that easily. So, how was the trip? I admit I was just a pinch worried. I appreciate it. I'm gonna let Cove answer that. He's the baby boy. It was fine, no problems for us. Kyra clapped her hands together, the bracelets around her wrist jingling. I'm so proud! I can hardly believe how mature you both are. Where'd all those smarts come from? Cove ran a hand over his hair with an awkward chuckle.
I don't know.
Maybe I got some from my parents. His mom looked up at him deeply, her eyes glistening as she shook the sentimentality off with a wave of her hand.
Anywho.
You have to be half asleep already, huh? I don't want to keep you up much longer. Early morning and any whoosies. How do you want to deal with the sleeping arrangements? I've only got my own room and Cove's, though the living room couch isn't bad. Blue can use my bed. I'll just sleep on the floor in the room. It doesn't matter for one night. Kyra laughed out loud, startling you both. You raised an eyebrow at her outburst, giving her a quizzical look. Oh yeah, you'll just stay on the floor. You couldn't handle that much back when you were 13, with both your parents in the room. Cove blushed a dark red and gaped, completely unprepared for her to pull out that embarrassing moment from the past. Oh, Cove, it's hilarious. Her laughter continued unabated. You're gonna be driving tomorrow. Do you really want to risk another potential head injury? Oh, she's being savage. She's being so savage to her son. Like, look at that face. That's someone who's getting completely roasted by his mother. Oh! I'm sorry, Cove. You're getting roasted.
Hey!
Mom! You sound long day. It's cruel to tease the poor boy so late, even if it's true. Cove hung his head in defeated embarrassment while you and Kyra chuckled together. I can't. I'm sorry, Cove. It's true. You did those things. They were stupid things. They were funny things. But you did them. They happened. We have the video. You're right. I'm just so happy you're here. I'll sleep on the couch in the living room. Cove shook his head, dismissing the idea immediately. God damn it, Cove. Let me do something kind to you.
No.
You're the guest. I don't want to take your bed. Well, I still want to take it from you, and I said it first. The two of you narrowed your eyes at each other stubbornly. Kyra took that as her cue to step in. My house, my rules den, and you know who I have to side with? I'd like you to take the bed, Blue. God damn it, Kyra! I'm trying to be nice to your son, who won't share a bed with me for some reason. You hesitated a moment, but it seemed you had to accept the hospitality with a small sigh. You gave in. All right. Cool.
So
would you be okay with me sleeping on the floor in the room? I'd rather be there than out in the open in the living room, even if there is a couch. Yeah, you can sleep there. I don't got a problem with it. Kyra giggled softly, drawing your attention back to her. All funny stuff aside, you need to get some sleep for tomorrow. Seems like you're settling yourself up for not getting any. I know that sounds really capitious, but I'm a mom. I have to say these things. Come on, we're not little kids having a sleepover. We're responsible adults, right, Blue? Sure. Well, I am Cove, though. Hey! I'm sorry, I remember the drive, Cove. You chuckled quietly to yourself as Cove gave you a disapproving look. I'll leave it at that for now. Just remember that the walls are thin in this apartment. If you can't settle down and sleep, I might have to separate you. Kyra! Oh, Miss Kyra, God! We'll be good.
Marvelous.
Perfect. Kyra clasped her hands together, her bracelets softly tinkling against each other again. It's only getting later, so I better let you prepare for bed. She nodded towards the hallway and gave you a small smile. I'll play hostess for a sec and show you where the bathroom is first, Blue, and where you'll be staying the night. Thank you. You hoisted your travel bag back over your shoulder and followed behind Kyra down the hallway. Cove shuffled along beside you, disappearing into the bedroom while his mom had you go to the restroom. The apartment was small but nicely decorated, in soft, cool colors with plenty of artwork hanging from the walls to give it character. It was stylish and exactly what you would have expected from someone like Kyra. After being shown the bathroom and wishing Kyra a good night, you headed into the room and found Cove already there. He had changed into his sleepwear for a night as well, setting aside his glasses already. Looking around, you found the bedroom to look much the same as the rest of the apartment, but with small ocean elements you were sure Cove must have enjoyed when he stayed here. All in all, the room was pretty and clean, although it almost looked more like a hotel guest room than a bedroom. Cove only spent a few weeks out of the year there, so it made sense that it wasn't especially lived in.
So?
What do you think? It's pretty nice, huh? Mom always keeps it clean and everything, even when I'm not here. It seriously looks like a hotel room. It's a really good hotel room. Hove huffed and turned away. He was being defensive over your teasing. When you went back to the room, you jumped in bed and under the covers just as Cove was shuffling into his sleeping bag on the floor. You waited until he was settled in before you flipped off the lights and a soft glow from outside peeked through the blinds, casting shadows over the floor. You closed your eyes, blocking everything out.
Night.
Night, Blue. Good night. Sleep tight. Don't let the bed bugs bite. The room grew quiet as the two of you wound down for the night, and you found yourself listening to the sounds of the city outside the window. The noise was there was so different from what you were used to back home. Cars zooming past and people out having fun instead of crashing waves and the ocean winds cocooning your house in their embrace. Da-da-dots, da-da-dots. I don't know why I'm singing every time I got a da-da-dot. This feels familiar, don't you think? We've been having sleepovers for years. Cove mumbled quietly and rustled into his bedding, turning his face towards your location.
Right?
Right? It feels like I've had this view so many times, looking up over at you tucked into bed. He trailed off a little and you assumed he was drifting off to sleep, too tired to continue the conversation. I think someone's realizing that he's never gotten the bed. But then, as if a switch had been hit, he sprung up, startling you as he shot upright in his sleeping bag. Wait a minute! Why am I always on the floor? What? You raised your eyebrows at him through the dark. The times I slept over at your house, you got to stay in your bed. It was your bed after all. But when it was in my family hosting things, my dad always made sure that you got a bed there. The words spilled out of him faster and faster, the pitch of his voice rising as the revelation spiraled. He'd say that you were the guest, so it was only right. No matter what, I've always been the one who takes the floor, every time. Doesn't your bed at home have a bunk bed? I'm confused, Cove. This is a racket! I'm sorry, I didn't want it to be that way. You felt really bad about the whole thing, but Cove was too hysterical to listen. My life is crumbling. I can't believe it. This has been going on for 10 years. He stopped suddenly, and you could see through the limited light that his eyebrows were angled in disbelief, his frown wobbly in shock. Just look at this adorable boy. Look at him. He's adorable. That's how it is in my family. My moms have always thought that it was more fun and comfortable for the guests to use their own sleeping things rather than a stranger's bed. And in my family, the guest gets the bed because it's good to make sure your guests have a proper place to sleep. We were opposites all along, but I never even thought about it. When it looked like the situation was gonna stall there, Cove sighed suddenly, his shoulders slumping in a sleep-addled defeat.
It's okay.
Forget it. It's too late to take back all the nights on the floor. At least I can think of myself as being really considerate. He sounded resigned to his fate, but despite looking on the bright side, he was still pouting. I did offer for you to take the bed tonight, you know.
I know.
I do know, but you were still the guest, and I hadn't had the epiphany. With a tired sigh, he flopped back down. I can make do on the floor, for old time's sake. You could share the bed? Some real humor came back to his tone. It's basically a tradition by now. Why don't we share? It's big enough? I feel like I'm gonna start a war. Cove inhaled deeply, the fabric of his sleeping bag crinkling loudly as he fidgeted beneath. I told my mom I was gonna stay on the floor. Cove! You frowned, wondering when that had ever stopped him before. Did you really plan going through with that? No? He hesitated a little, the silence stretching between you. You couldn't help but smile to yourself. You knew him well. The sleeping bag rustled again, and though the dim light, you saw him stand and head towards the bed. He took a deep breath as he ran his hands across the top of the blanket, gathering his nerves as his eyes met yours. He's so cute! Aw, he's so shy. Then he paused, head tilted to the side as if silently asking permission. Well, what are you waiting for? You shuffled over to make room for him as he pulled the bedding up and crawled beneath the covers, leaving the two of you close together but not quite touching. He exhaled a heavy breath as he laid down on his side, his head getting comfy on the pillow next to yours. You smiled softly through the dark, thinking that it felt good to have him so close. You felt better when he was around. Aw, it's so cute. He raised his fingers and delicately brushed the tips of your cheeks, drawing a shaky sigh from your lips. His touch was warm and feather-light, making you feel tingly all over. When his eyes met yours again, you found yourself lost in them, the world becoming still and silent around you. Then he froze, his muscles tensing as he closed up like a clam, his breath hitched in his throat. He attempted to whisper something, but it was completely lost on you. With that having to suffice as a warning, Cove jumped up, jumped out of the bed and crouched down on the floor, his head held in his hands as he took a few deep, shuddering breaths. You bolted upright in bed, staring down at him with a mixture of alarm and bemusement. Are you okay?
I'm always like this.
I thought I'd feel like it did before, when we were younger, but it's different now. I'm sorry, Blue. Really sorry. I'm just so... He panted deeply in and out, as though he'd just finished running an entire marathon. After finally steadying his breathing to a normal rhythm, he crawled back into his sleeping bag and huddled down on the floor, his back turned to you. Sorry. So close, yet so far. Oh! I get it! All of these are kind of like little bitter emotions, like little jabs. Why did we even bother? Let's just forget it. Let's go with let's just forget it. He made an apologetic noise, acknowledging that he had heard you, but could say no more. With a resigned sigh, you laid back down in bed alone. The next day dawned, bringing with it sounds of birds chirping happily outside the window. You opened your eyes slowly, letting them adjust to the light as you tried to recall where you were, remembering the unfamiliar sight of Cove's second bedroom. Cove nudged us awake. Rise and shine, Blue! Cove shook your shoulder and you groaned dramatically and buried your head into your pillow. Oh, 5 more minutes!
No way.
No way, we've got to get started. Sitting up in bed, you let out a yawn and stretched your arms above your head. I'm groggy. You were used to sleeping in longer than this, and the late night hadn't helped. Morning! The two of you were on completely different wavelengths right now. You pulled yourself out of bed, grabbing a fresh change of clothes and your toiletries before heading to the bathroom. After all that, you met Cove back in his room. He was sitting on the floor when you entered, sorting through a bunch of stuff in a box, determining what to bring and what to leave behind. Hey! Hey, can you pull out the stuff in those drawers? You nodded, though he hadn't looked up from his task, so you knew he wouldn't have seen. Heading over to his drawers, you started the task of taking out various items and setting them on the ground in front of Cove. After a while, it became clear that Cove was acting strange whenever you went near him. He was flinching over your presence. It happened a few more times before you couldn't take the awkwardness anymore. He dropped the stuff you were holding down in front of him and raised a questioning eyebrow. Is everything okay?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry about last night. Again. He quietly squeaked the second part of his thought. About staying in bed with you. I know you just want to be with your own boyfriend and not have to feel bad about wanting that or be rejected over it. You shouldn't have to, but I do it anyway. He swallowed thickly, struggling to find the right words to explain himself. I do think it felt nice. Really. It's just also not bad, but in a good and inconvenient way.
I mean...
Laying together like that, being so close, it gets too hot, you know? Cove, we're adults now. We fine, boy. Aw, he's so adorably cute. His cheeks flushed with color and he immediately trailed off, his eyes firmly fixed on the floor. Oh, I'm sorry to bother you. He let out a fractured chuckle.
It's okay.
You didn't. Please don't say you're sorry for that. You were perfect, and if you're gonna feel bad too, then how about we both let ourselves feel alright about it instead? I'd like that. Cool. Let's get back to packing. With it more or less resolved, you went to grab some more items as Cove focused on the box in front of him once again. Da-da-da, da-da-da, it's an awkward silence that can't be written or understood. There's no story, there's nothing going on but the da-da-da. Oh, da-da-da. Oh, hey, look at this. When you turned towards the sound of Cove's voice, you found him digging through one of the drawers beneath the bed.
Neat.
Here, something I'll definitely need to bring. Neat. Craning your head, you got a better glimpse at what he was holding. A small stack of papers. You immediately recognized the handwriting as your own. Those were the letters you sent him when he was away. He kept them the whole time. Oh, Cove! It's adorable you care so much for them. He sighed, glancing between you and the items in his hands. They bring back good memories. A faint blush of color crept over his cheeks, and he looked away quickly.
It's nice.
These are special. It was important, having a piece of you with me when we were apart. I feel the same way. That's why I gave them to you. Cove smiled, pleased that the feeling was mutual, but then the expression became more amused. And did you keep the souvenirs I brought back? Ah! Of course. His grin grew to completion. Thanks. Another hour passed by in silence, and you were happy to see that you were making great progress with Cove's room, with only the closet left to sort through. You took a minute to take a mouthful of water from your bottle and perched on the edge of the bed, feeling productive. Cove glanced over at you and paused, putting down the tape gun he had been using to seal up his box as you raised an eyebrow. You know, it's really strange to see you sitting in this room. Why? He frowned a little, his eyes distant and his voice quiet when he spoke next.
That's...
During the visits to Mom's, when I was sitting here alone in this room, I'd sometimes think about how you weren't here. Oh, Cove. It was a weird feeling at the time, that you just weren't around. And now that you're here, in this exact place, I don't know how to explain the feeling. He shrugged it off and smiled a little, as though he'd said enough already, and you didn't want to risk sounding silly. Life's pretty confusing is all. That's true, life makes no sense. I missed you so much when you were gone. His brows crinkled as he looked at you I don't know how to pronounce this word. Solemnly? Someone correct me in the comments down below on how I'm supposed to pronounce that word. His eyes bright with emotion. I missed you too. All the time. It made you feel better to know that somehow. To know that when you were stuck at home missing his company, that he was missing yours too. He looked away satisfied, heading over to the closet and the last of the items to be sorted. Before long, every box, closet, and drawer had been thoroughly combed through, and the items either neatly packed up in boxes or organized and returned to their proper place. With a sigh of relief, you glanced around the bedroom and worked in the work you had done together.
All right.
We're done. Good on us. I'm gonna change out of my PJs for the drive. Yeah. When the two of you headed out to the living room, ready to get everything finalized and hit the road, you found Kyra in the kitchen pouring a cup of tea. Cove headed towards her, leaning casually against the counter that divided the two spaces. Hey, you didn't have to get up so early.
Come on.
Are you crazy? Of course I have to see you off before you go. You can't sneak away while I'm out cold. She beamed at him, and in all honesty, it seemed more than happy to be up and getting ready for the day. Do you want some breakfast? I've got some muesli or eggs and toast. Oh, and some of that fruity cereal you used to love. That's okay. We really should eat on the road. Kyra smiled sadly, a little disappointed, but she seemed to understand that your time was running thin. I thought you might say that. In that case, I've packed some snacks for the road.
What do you think?
Even if you don't end up eating them, take them anyway, just in case. You can always feed them to Cliff when you get home, and tell him I said hi. Cove laughed and shook his head, knowing his dad would love nothing more than to polish off whatever food Kyra had prepared for you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mom. You really didn't have to. Must be a mom thing to know stuff like that. Kyra smiled before resting her gaze on Cove fondly. One of the many pleasures of being a parent. She returned your smile with one of her own before putting her cup of tea aside. Well, I'll help you get the car packed.
Sure.
Sure, thanks. The three of you gotta move on, taking the boxes from Cove's bedroom and heading down to fill the back seat of the car until there was barely an inch of space left in the back and trunk. With all of you helping, it only took a couple of trips to move everything and you were done before you knew it. Then it was truly time to say goodbye. You convened back inside the apartment where Kyra looked over the two of you with a quiet smile. It was great to see you both. Thank you for coming. She gave each of you a hug and you felt a little sad that you hadn't been able to spend more time with her. It was good to see you too, Mom. Cove embraced her in return, the two of them holding onto each other for a few seconds longer. I'll miss you, but I'll visit again soon.
Of course.
You better! Hey, we should make plans for you to visit us soon. I'll let you know when it's settled. I'd love that! Kyra bundled all the stuff she prepared into a bag and handed them over to you. You took a quick peek at what she had packed. There was fruit, nuts, seeds, hard-boiled eggs, and some veggie sticks.
Cool.
Oh, good to see we've got some fresh food options now. The snacks I brought weren't. Kyra shook her head at him and let out a soft laugh as though she wouldn't have expected anything less. I seriously hope you're feeding yourself better than that at home. Yeah, of course, just not on trips. I can live with that then. She looked over him fondly, her eyes at last focusing on his face and filling with emotion. I'm gonna miss you, baby.
Me too.
Oh, Cove. We'll all be together again before you know it. I hope so. Kyra put an arm around you both, pulling you into tight to her sides for one final squeeze.
Bye.
Have a safe trip. We will. With a last goodbye, you exited the apartment, though Cove hesitated for a moment at the door, his expression distant. You weren't sure what he was doing, though you tentatively took a step towards him. Everything okay? Your voice seemed to bring him back to earth, and he shook his head to clear his thoughts, his green hair swaying from side to side.
Come on.
Yeah, let's go. With that, the two of you headed back down to the car, ready to make the long trip home. Soon enough, you were in the wide open road with a car full of Cove's things and only one destination, Sunset Bird, California. The drive went on as smoothly as could be expected, with the morning slowly creeping into midday as the miles flew by. After a while, you switched places with Cove and took over driving for a couple hours. The day flew by in a whir of the open road and sunshine, and before you knew it, it was early afternoon. By that point, you had already crossed the state line, and Cove announced that he planned a little stop on the way home. He was quite pleased with himself as you arrived at the precipice. The Redwood National— Oh, Cove! Shaded beneath a canopy of enormous redwood trees, you drove along. When Cove parked the car, you pushed the door to get out. The first thing you did was look up. Enormous redwood trees surrounded you on all sides, their massive trunks shooting straight up into the canopy of foliage overhead. There were too many of them to count, stretching on and on as far as you could see. You squinted again against the sunlight that was peeking through the leaves and dancing on the paths around you. It's great, right? He smiled at you over the roof of the car before glancing around the place fondly. Remember the trip our families took here that one summer? It was cool going on a journey and seeing the forest in person, even if we didn't stay that very long.
So...
And I guess we can stay for even less this time, but oh well. It just seemed like a good time to stop by. Who knows when we'll get another chance. His voice got a little softer at the end, and it seemed bittersweet for him, but being in a place he was so fond of, but not having the time to appreciate it fully. I'm so pleased. It was a beautiful place to stretch your legs and get some fresh air. There'll be more chances in the future, I promise. Cove smiled, shoving his hands in his pockets and dipping his head. I'm gonna hold you to that. The two of you walked around for a while, completely dwarfed by the sheer scale of the redwoods. It kind of put your view of yourself and everything in a strange perspective. You took in a lungful of clean forest air, listening to the sounds of birdsong and the cool breeze rustling through the underbush, taking advantage of the space to move around freely. However you felt about being there, it was a totally different scene than sitting in the old car for hours and hours. I'm gonna take Cove's hand. You intertwined his fingers with yours, smiling at you as he relaxed into your touch and rubbed the back of your hand softly with his thumb. Being here again, you couldn't help but reminisce on what else had happened during the trip you had taken here all that time ago. There were a lot of things that had reminded you of it recently. You looked over at Cove, who seemed to be lost in peace of the place, and you wondered if any of it crossed his mind. Smiling at the sight, you thought back on what had been the highlight of that long-gone vacation. I haven't forgotten the classic anklet trap. Oh! We can either do the kiss or the anklet. I'm gonna do the anklet. That was a revelation. Cove scratched his face awkwardly and sighed, seeming determined not to meet your eyes. I know you remember, and I'm never gonna hear the end of it from you, am I? You gave a light shrug. Do you still like them? I do. Oh, Cove! You adorable boy. He laughed quietly, the sound nervous and a little strained. Especially on you. Oh. The words left his lips and you froze, completely taken aback by the compliment. He blushed, but his gaze remained on you. You're so sweet. He blushed further, his face turning a deep shade of red. Your spirits were light as you ambled past information boards and picnic areas. But before long, you decided it was time to bring this short stop to an end and head back to the car to get on the road again. Cove sighed when you finally reached the vehicle, jangling the keys in his hands before unlocking the doors.
Well,
I wish we didn't have to go, but we're gonna have to be responsible and not stay longer than we should. How grown up of you! He smiled slightly, and with that, the two of you jumped into the car, buckled in, and he put it in drive. You were getting closer and closer to town as the sun started setting, though you were still far enough away that the radio stations were unfamiliar to you. Oh! Oh! Artwork! Cove twisted the dial on his way before stumbling into a channel with a song he seemed to like. It was a rare gift from the fates of the sea, in the sea of static and strange radio jockeys and grating tunes. His face immediately brightened at the sound of it, and he drummed his fingers along the bottom of the steering wheel happily. Sitting back in his seat, he bobbed his head and shimmied his shoulders in time with the tune, all while mouthing along the words. Occasionally, he even lifted one hand from the wheel to gesture with his fingers for a specific line. I'm gonna sing along. Cove raised a pleased eyebrow at your vocalization. Emboldened by you, Cove decided to speak the words rather than lip sync. Your voices mixed together, slowly creeping louder and louder as you belted out the words to the song. Every now and then a word would be sung wrong, but by the end you were both laughing too much to continue. The song ended and Cove reached over to start cycling through the radio stations again. Upon finding nothing tolerable, he flipped the dial off in defeat and leaned back in his seat with a sigh. You rested your head on your hand and stared out the window as the sky darkened, watching the landscape slowly melt into more familiar views. The miles went on, and any energy you had earlier was beginning to drain away. You imagined home and your family, and you'd be there together soon. You know, I spent all these years living in Sunset Bird and taking a few weeks each summer visiting my mom in that second room. That's not gonna happen anymore. Not really. Oh, Cove.
I mean,
I can still see my parents, but the way it all works between us has changed forever. He paused, the silence stretching, a serious look settled on his face, his thoughts far away. I'm worried about how things would be in the future. So many things will be different. I hope I'm ready for it. Cove's mouth pulled into a tight line and he gave you a small nod. You got the feeling he understood how you felt. Cove stared straight ahead down the long, long road. The path looked like it never ended from where you were, but that wasn't true. Eventually, he found a few more words to say.
I'm so glad.
I think it's good we were able to do this trip. Without any parents or chaperones. It was just us. We did it. I don't know, I feel a little more independent now. A little more ready for what's ahead. The topic seemed to wear on Cove, and he made an attempt to find something else to speak on. So, I'm kinda sad about getting back. I'm gonna miss having you right there tonight. He cleared his throat quietly. Though said nothing more, you smiled to yourself a little, hearing him say something like that out loud. I'm gonna miss it too. And with the feelings confirmed as mutual, the two of you fell into a comfortable silence. Ah! What happened? There we go. The sky outside grew even darker for the hours passed by, the stars blinking on as tiny fireflies painted into a canvas of blue. The scenery continued transitioning between open roads, industrial areas, and beach towns, becoming increasingly recognizable as time went on. You felt somewhat disconnected from the world around you as you watched it through your window, your tired mind growing hazy. It was a strange, reflective feeling, but peaceful nonetheless. Soon enough, the world would return to you, and you'd find your feet firmly on the ground. It couldn't be helped. The adventure would end, life could continue, but your memories would linger on. And there we have it, everybody! Thank you for joining me as we completed Drive. We have Charity, and then we obviously move on to the ending of Step 3, because none of the DLC is out yet. But anyway, thank you all so much for joining me as we continue on our relationship and life with Cove. It's always fun to be with Cove and to play our life. It's an adorable dating sim, and I love it. And I can't wait for the DLC. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me. I will catch you all on the flip side. Bye, everyone.